What is multimedia learning? When we say multimedia learning, we're talking about learning from words and pictures in general. Words can be spoken or written. Pictures can be static or animated. So what you're doing right now, which is learning from this video, is multimedia learning as well. So it's learning from a classroom lecture where an instructor shows his PowerPoint presentation. So it's learning from a book with images. So it's learning from an interactive game such as tablet games or a smartboard activity. So it's learning within a virtual simulation like Sims or Second Life. Before getting into multimedia learning, what do you think is the most important thing in learning? Time's up. The answer is attention. For any successful learning, a learner must pay a sufficient amount of attention to the exact things she needs to pay attention to at the exact moment she needs to pay attention to them. In other words, the right amount of attention to the right content at the right moment. It sounds simple. Do you think it's easy? You might say,
"What's the big deal about it? I always do that."
Do you? Hell no! This is one of those skills that only few people I know have perfected. It's almost like an art, but just like any skill, with practice, you'll be able to do it right and effortlessly. And learning gets as easy as breathing. For example, you go to class, listen to your professor, and at the end of the class, you understand and remember everything your professor has explained to you. A+. If your students are like that, in other words, if your students are highly skilled in paying right amount of attention to the right content at the right moment, they will learn successfully even if your teaching sucks. But the reality is, most people are not amazingly great at paying attention. So you, as a teacher, has to make it easier for your students to pay right amount of attention to the right content at the right moment. So the question is, how can you do that? Researchers have studied how people learn from words and pictures, and according to the Cambridge Handbook of Multimedia Learning, 2nd edition, published in 2014, they have discovered 24 principles of multimedia learning. 13 of them are categorized as classic principles of multimedia learning, and the other 11 principles are categorized as advanced principles of multimedia learning. For the overview of these classic and advanced principles, please watch my 2 introduction videos about them. By the way, these are the 3 basic ideas behind the multimedia learning principles. In other words, all multimedia learning principles aim to do one or all of these 3 things. What do they mean? You must first try to eliminate or reduce extraneous elements from students' learning, so that learning will be easier and more efficient. If you can't get rid of or reduce them, emphasize what's important, so that your students will not miss what's important. And finally, for any meaningful learning to take place, active learning is necessary. One thing I want to make sure here is that active learning is not about moving your hands and body for learning. It's about using your mind actively. So this guy, a yogi, could be doing active learning right now. So we're trying to help students learn through multimedia. So what's learning anyway? Learning is about knowledge creation. Then what is knowledge? Rote memorization played some role in knowledge creation. But when it comes to understanding contents, creating knowledge means creating a mental model about what something is, how it's structured, and how it works. When I try to understand something or when I learn something new, I subconsciously pay attention to how parts are working individually, as well as how those parts are working together to create the whole or function as a whole. That's what it means to create a mental model of something. So you'll be learning the 24 principles of multimedia learning. Why? Because those 24 principles are designed to make learning easier and more efficient. And also because these principles are aimed to help your students create mental models of what they are learning more easily and efficiently.